The Babylon Project was our last best hope for sci-fi, a self-contained podcast 1 hour long located on the internet, a place of fun and discussion for Babylon 5 fans everywhere, a shining beacon in cyberspace, all alone in the night. It was the dawn of the 20th anniversary of Babylon 5, the year the Great War to free Bab 5 came upon us all. This is the story of the last of the Babylon podcast. The year is 2016. The name of the place is the Babylon Project Podcast.
This is Maggie Egan, your ISN news anchor, and you're listening to the Babylon Project podcast.
Hello there, Babylon 5 fans. This is Raul, and I am here with my good friend Jim Arrowwood. How are you tonight, sir?
I am great.
Tonight we are talking about, depending on who you listen to, an episode either called Spider in the Web or A Spider in the Web.
Yep, and if you're in Australia, it's a spider in the web.
Straczynski and all of his internet dealings called the episode A Spider in the Web, but the actual air title just had Spider in the Web. So there's some question about what exactly is the title of the episode. I tend to use the A Spider in the Web just from past time online, which is how I saw it most of the time.
Yeah, I think Straczynski said in quotes on the Lurker's Guide that it was supposed to be a spider in the web.
Well, this episode is kind of hard to classify. It feels standalone, but it's not standalone. It's not an arc episode from the perspective of the Shadow War. It's not a Psi Corp episode. It's not an Earth Rebellion episode, but it's all of the above. I guess the best way to put it would be a mythology episode.
Well, and it also introduces some of the themes that we're going to get in the third and fourth season with the Mars stuff going on.
Oh, certainly.
The Mars problem, as they put it.
And it also, like I said, it's standalone, but it develops so much of the mythology.
Yeah.
It develops a lot of stuff with Psi Corp, too.
Yes.
And we'll get to that as we discuss.
Mm-hmm.
So, without any further ado, do you have a summary for us?
Oh, well, of course I do, don't I always?
I sure hope so. Take it away, Jim.
Archive. Access. Initiated.
Talia meets with an old friend, Taro Isogi, and a representative of the Mars Provisional Government, Amanda Carter. Isogi, a representative of Future Corp, is on the station to discuss the expansion of a company that will lead to an independent Mars. Meanwhile, somewhere under the San Diego wastelands, a woman initiates the beginning of a clandestine operation on Babylon 5. On the station, a cargo container opens and a human hand begins reaching out. In his office, Sheridan receives a call from Senator Voudreau, who tells Sheridan that he is to monitor the meetings between Isogi and Carter because members of EarthGov suspect that Isogi's company is planning to finance another armed rebellion on Mars. Sheridan explains that his duties do not include interfering with civilian negotiations, but the senator tells him to be aware of the proceedings anyway. Isogi's plan is for Mars to be completely independent within 10 years by reaching out to alien worlds to help build the infrastructure. Babylon 5 has all of the representatives from possible future partners that are needed to carry out his plan. Talia, who has been moderating the negotiations, agrees to have dinner with Isogi to discuss some of her concerns she has about the plan. Later, while Talia escorts Isogi through the red sector of the station, a man steps forward, yells "Free Mars," grabs Isogi by the throat, and kills him with a powerful electrical discharge. The man then turns to Talia, but after a telepathic flash, the man just walks away. Not long after, Talia tells Sheridan and Garibaldi what took place, and that while scanning the attacker, she sensed no emotion whatsoever. Garibaldi assures her that they will find the attacker. The scene switches to the attacker, who is accessing a terminal using a cybernetic hand. He uploads the attack of Isogi, which includes images of Talia being present. He is then ordered to eliminate Talia before proceeding on to the next phase of the operation. Sheridan and Garibaldi discuss the results of an autopsy on Isogi. Garibaldi explains that the technology used in the assassination was far more advanced than anything that the Free Mars movement possesses. He also doesn't understand how this could have been brought aboard the station without being detected. Sheridan has suspicions but keeps them to himself for the moment. In the meantime, Talia is being escorted by a security guard when the assassin suddenly appears again and reaches for her. She is able to scan him again and sees that he was at some point attacked while piloting a vessel in a past memory. The scan temporarily stuns the attacker, allowing her to escape harm. Appearing confused, the attacker wanders off. Later, when Talia talks with Sheridan about the attack, she tells him that the memory she saw was of the attacker's death, and that it is the only memory that he has. It is also determined that the attacker is a man named Abel Horn, who was killed while fighting for the Free Mars movement. Horn meets with Carter in her quarters. While surprised to see him, she obviously recognizes him. He explains that after he was attacked by Earth Force, he was patched up by another member of the Free Mars movement, and he further denies having anything to do with the death of Isogi. He tells her that he wants help getting back to Mars, and then suddenly has spasms and asks her to get Talia for him. Meanwhile, Talia and Garibaldi exchange some background information over tea. Soon, Sheridan calls Garibaldi away, and in Sheridan's quarters, they discuss a Project Lazarus in which recently dead individuals are reanimated and fitted with cybernetic implants. Sheridan thinks that Horn might be a product of a similar program, and if true, should allow them to track him down. While Horn sleeps, Carter contacts Talia and asks her to join her in her quarters. After the call is ended, Horn awakens and knocks Carter out. Sheridan works on his plan to track down Horn while Garibaldi leads a security team to escort Talia to Carter's quarters. When they arrive, Talia enters the quarters while the security team waits outside. Talia is suddenly seized by Horn, who demands that she explain what is happening to him and what the memories in his head mean. When she scans him again, she sees a memory of him in an operating room while a Psi Corp oversees the installation of his cybernetic implants. Meanwhile, Sheridan locates Horn and orders the security team to enter the room, and that Horn is to be taken alive. When the team enters the room, Horn uses Talia as a shield and orders everyone to put their weapons down. Horn picks up Garibaldi's PPG as Sheridan arrives and appeals to Horn to work with them. Horn releases Talia but is enraged at what has happened to him and takes a shot at Garibaldi. Sheridan returns fire, hitting Horn. When Horn's body is scanned for life signs, it is detected that there is a massive energy buildup in his body, and as everyone evacuates the room, Horn's body explodes. Later, Carter is treated in MedLab for minor injuries. After apologizing to Talia, Carter confesses that she was once a part of the Free Mars movement, but she left when they became violent. Thinking that her career is finished, Sheridan assures her that he will not report what he has learned about Carter as long as she continues to work to make Isogi's plan a reality. Later, Garibaldi asks Sheridan how he knew about the Lazarus Project. Sheridan explains that he collects secrets as a kind of hobby. He suspects that Horn was part of a secret organization operating illegally inside of EarthGov called Bureau 13. He suspects that they were using Horn to infiltrate the Free Mars movement as a double agent. Again, the Psi Cop that Talia saw in Horn's memory converses with an entity called Control, stating that the mission was only partially successful. She further tells Control to do a follow-up to be sure that Bureau 13 is not in jeopardy of being discovered. The final scene of the episode is of Talia looking up the identity of the Psi Cop, who is listed as deceased.
Character files opened.
Alrighty, thank you for that, Jim.
Always happy to do it.
We had a pretty broad guest cast tonight.
Yes, it was quite neat, actually.
Well, where do you want to start looking over those?
Well, let's just start right with the big star, Adrienne Barbeau, who plays Amanda Carter. This is her only appearance on Babylon 5.
Correct.
She was once married to John Carpenter.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of her film credits include so many of his horror stories.
Yes.
She was a regular in those.
But as far as science fiction is concerned, there isn't a whole lot there. She was in the movie Escape from New York. She was Maggie.
That's one of the main things I remember her from.
Yes. And she was on Star Trek Deep Space Nine as Senator Kretek.
Okay.
And numerous other credits dating all the way back to 1976, the year I graduated from high school.
Oh, wow. Now, what she's most famous for, of course, is her role in Maude.
Yes.
Playing Carol.
A show which I never watched.
My parents were fans of it. I, as you say, never watched it.
No.
The other thing that I know her most as, if you remember the early 90s Batman the Animated Series, in the same way that Mark Hamill really opened up a new avenue for him doing voice work playing Joker, Adrienne Barbeau voiced Selena Kyle, Batwoman. I will say this though, she kind of gets pigeonholed into the horror story and the Maude bit, but I wish she would get more mainstream drama roles. I've always thought she was a fantastic actress.
I guess
when she's the problem has always been she's kind of not just the horror story, but also, let's face it, she had when she was a lot younger, she had one heck of a figure.
Oh yeah, and
she kind of got pigeonholed because of that. And the end result, in my opinion, is she just didn't get she didn't get good roles that would showcase her.
Yeah, and I think some of the writing that goes along with what I've seen her in really wasn't very good either.
I mean, you look at what she did with this Babylon 5 role.
Yeah, this was definitely a highlight.
Well, okay, who else do we have?
Yeah, we have James Shigata as Taro Isogi, born in Hawaii, and he just passed away this last year in 2014. Again, this is his only appearance on Babylon 5. He has numerous credits dating back to 1959, including The Outer Limits and SeaQuest 2032. I enjoyed that show.
I've tried it. I've tried to get into it multiple times, and I just really never made it. He played General Lee in Mulan, which I still think is one of the best animated series that I've seen.
Then we have Jessica Walter as Senator Voudreau, if I'm pronouncing that correct, Voudreau. She has credits dating back to 1951, and in the genre, Wonder Woman in 1977, and in the movie Gravity in 2010. Or no, I'm sorry, not the movie Gravity, but the television series on ABC, the short-lived television series. We also had Annie Grindlay as 13/the Psi Cop.
Right.
And it's her only B5 appearance. And then last, but definitely not least, is a fan favorite, and I know he's definitely one of mine on this show anyway, Jeff Conway as Zach Allen. Unfortunately, Jeff Conway died at the age of 51.
4 years ago.
In 2011. Yes. Apparently as a result of a drug overdose.
Yeah, he had a long history of substance abuse.
Yeah. He appeared in 74 episodes of Babylon 5 and 3 of the movies.
Yep.
And he was nominated for 2 Golden Globe Awards for his role in Taxi.
Which is a show I really didn't watch.
See, and I did watch it once in a while when it was on, and it was years later and in reruns late at night.
Yeah, that was another. There's several TV shows that were incredibly popular that I just couldn't get into. Taxi was one. Friends was another. I couldn't. I never made it through one complete episode of that, in spite of many people trying to get me to do that. So
Friends.
Oh,
yeah. No, forget it.
Hated it.
I wouldn't sit still for it. In any case, no, Taxi, the thing that really attracted me to that was Christopher Lloyd.
Yeah.
I mean, that character was a real character. My favorite routine comes at the end of one of the shows, where his name was Jim, and he's taking a driving test.
Right.
And he looks at Alex and he says, "What does a yellow light mean?" And Alex says, "Slow down." And he says, "What does a yellow light mean?" And Alex says, "Slow down." What does you get the idea?
Yeah. So, okay. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. So that
Fortunately, this is not the Taxi Fan Podcast.
Well, it could be. No, I'm just.
I don't know how many episodes I've waited to throw that line back at you.
I know. We know all.
Oh God.
We know about paybacks.
Initiating plot analysis.
Anyway, a spider in the web.
A spider in the web. It's more or less a business as usual opening.
Yeah.
Just taking care of the station business.
Yep.
Though I have to admit, I love the Mel Brooks tip-off of the hat.
Yeah.
It's good to be the captain.
Yeah. Well, being the mark of being a good manager or commander, I guess, would be you know how to delegate.
Your ability to delegate.
Yes.
Though, I will tell you what, it starts off from something that's incredibly routine, and everything we're going to talk about it for now is all going to be in that opening teaser, and we'll flag it when the teaser closes and we actually get around to the opening credits.
Yeah, that's a long teaser.
It's not so much the length, it's the density of what happens.
Yeah.
Because we go from that to Isogi presenting himself, being met by Talia, wanting to do something that apparently a lot of people on both sides of the Mars situation, meaning Earth
yes,
and Mars itself, wanting to do something that neither side is going to like.
Right.
Which means it's probably a pretty fair compromise.
Oh, yeah. Well, and it's also pointed out that it's risky, progressive, and expensive.
And, of course, the base situation is Earth, of course, had colonized Mars.
Yes.
It seems that Mars gets often treated as second class. They kind of want their own independence, and that's been all this tension behind the Free Mars.
We can look at history as a precedent. I mean, how many times has another place been colonized and drained dry of resources and then just kind of cut loose?
How long has there been human civilization?
Exactly. So the people on Mars are looking for their independence.
Earth doesn't want to give it to them.
Of course not. That means they wouldn't get their taxes.
Right. And we very quickly meet the Mars representative, Amanda Carter.
Yes.
And you notice her great-grandfather's name is John Carter.
I know. That was such a cool reference.
Uh-huh. I wonder if that means her grandmother was named Thuvia.
Well, who knows? It's at least they're not calling it Barsoom.
Yeah. Oh my. Now, then from there we cut straight into San Diego, which is something of a wasteland now.
Yeah.
And that's sort of an inside joke from Joe Straczynski.
Yeah, you want to explain that?
It's his way of giving a bit of a tip-off to his old hometown. He used to live in San Diego.
Ah.
The choice was, for him, the choice was just more or less a bit of fun.
Okay.
Now, I think that might have been where he was mugged. Remember, if we talked about that before, I believe?
Yes.
Yeah, he had a bad experience, but it's mostly just sort of a tip to his old hometown. And as we sweep through San Diego into this still functioning facility somewhere deep underground, apparently, we hear President Clark talking about focusing on the needs of Earth and a little bit of some of the isolationism.
Yeah.
Except he passes this off as working towards the future that Santiago had promised.
Yeah.
Which is completely the opposite of reality, of course.
Well, yeah, as far as our place in the galaxy, in the known galaxy, and as far as cooperation with other races is concerned.
Yeah.
But yeah, you get the right kind of politician, and as we all know, they can twist anything the way they want to twist it.
Yep, and Clark seems to be quite good at that.
Oh, yeah.
Now, that's just sort of a little bit of passing. What we do get is a conversation with a Psi Cop talking to something called Control, and Control being prepared to bring something online.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're going to hear language like this again as we get into season 4.
Okay.
It becomes part of Garibaldi's story arc of season 4, if you remember.
Yes.
But we don't know what this Control is or who this Control is. It's a disguised, digitized voice. Whatever it is that's going online apparently is part of some classified cargo.
Yes.
Yeah, classified. Yeah, right. I'll say.
Should be.
Yeah, hand popping out. That's an interesting cargo.
Yeah, and that was the one with the hand that popped out had the ring on it, too.
Uh-huh.
So.
And all of this is happening just in that first, couple of minutes, which I guess is sort of so much for business as usual.
Yeah.
Anyway, after the credits,
we've
got a call from the Senate to Sheridan. And it's not Hidoshi this time.
No.
Yeah, he in fact, he's pretty much gone from the series now.
Yeah.
This, however, is why I like, one of the things, at least I'll put it that way, is one of the things I like about Sheridan.
Okay.
Sinclair tended to get shoveled around by the Senate. Now, it might have been a little more in the job description. There may have been some change in the job description or conditions when, when Sheridan took over the station. But the bottom line is, when they try to push him around, he's polite but firm that he's military. So, he doesn't push quite so easily.
Right. Well, and Sinclair, he was pretty good at doing an end run around the rules. And finding the loopholes.
Yeah.
Sheridan's a little more hard-headed.
He just pushes back.
Yeah.
And I think this might be one of the last times he really deals with the Senate.
Yeah. And you know what? The senator that was talking to him did a real good job sounding nervous about Mars gaining independence. I mean,
yeah,
you knew there was something that was really bothering the people back home.
They don't seem to want to let Mars go.
No.
Speaking of Mars and letting Mars go, apparently Isogi's idea goes over good with Amanda.
Yeah.
She's obviously being cautious. She's being politic, which is understandable. But it seems Isogi is very pro-Mars.
Yes.
Now, he represents one of the large mega corporations, but I don't know. We really don't get his background, if I remember correctly. It doesn't say whether he's from Mars or not. He's just very supportive of Mars and likes the idea of an independent Mars.
Yeah. And achieved at with a peaceful solution and a compromise as opposed to all out
bloodshed.
Yeah.
Okay. I have to make a complaint, and it's not about Babylon 5. It's about the genre in general.
Okay.
How are these Martians that have been born and raised on Mars able to even stand up on Babylon 5?
Huh.
Several generations. I mean, when you look at bone and muscle density and mass loss today, even with a few months in 0G.
Yeah.
Take 3 generations on Mars on its gravity, which is what I think a third of Earth's, because the planet itself is so much less dense.
Yeah.
And how are they able to stand on Babylon 5, which is rotating to give us Earth norm gravity, 1G? And now, it's not just Babylon 5. Every science fiction series that has had Mars populated, and every science fiction movie that I can think of, seems to have this same issue.
Well,
you have to suspend belief.
Well, yeah, and they talk about this in other areas also, because you're not going to have a show if you have people falling down when.
Yeah, it kind of makes it a little hard.
Yeah, so as you say, suspend the disbelief.
Like I said, this is just one of my little technical rants.
Well, the studio's in Earth normal gravity, so I suppose it's kind of hard.
Though I think sometimes they might be in a parallel universe. Okay, I'm an old Dale Carnegie graduate, so you talk about if you do something critical, if you make a criticism, you want to surround it by positives.
Right.
Well, this is one of the positives for me. The Tilkar.
Uh-huh.
That was a lot of exposition that wasn't necessarily directly related to the actual story itself.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that he can give us that kind of slice of world, I think, this is strictly my opinion, I think it is great writing. Because on the one hand, it's not necessarily directly to the story, but it tells us about Sheridan's background. He's got experience with first contact situations. It gives you an even better idea of man's place because this particular race is so advanced.
Mm-hmm.
It fills out the depth of the universe.
Yeah.
In a way that you don't get otherwise.
Well, yeah, and the characters, as we have mentioned before, are just really real people. So anyway, they sit down to have a drink, and Sheridan orders a Jovian sunspot. Troy Rudder makes Jovian sunspots. The recipe is online, and I was chatting with him one evening while he was making some, and his recipe's a little bit different, because apparently the actual drink that they did on the show and the recipe that is given doesn't taste great.
Okay.
So he does a couple of different ingredients in there, and he's promised to bring the ingredients to Ozfest this summer. So I will probably try one.
All right.
He's even talking about maybe hosting not a hospitality room, but a room party.
Oh.
So I will get to try a Jovian sunspot.
Okay.
Later this summer.
I don't know if we had talked about this before. On the one hand, I would love to be able to get up there for the conference. However, if I had to choose one, because the big St. Louis conference is Archon.
Right.
If I had to choose one or the other, I'm beginning to think I would go for Archon because it's going to be Harlan Ellison, the great curmudgeon, as the guest.
Yep.
But anyway, on the story, we finally get around to the real story motion. The Sogi being killed. Unfortunately, the senator got her wish. Sheridan has to get involved now.
Yes, and unfortunately, Talia was on hand to witness this. But it was really funny at the time because the as of yet unnamed assailant was, he just looked at Talia and just walked away. You know, knowing, seeing her there as a witness, he didn't do anything to her, and I thought that was a little weird at the time.
Well, one of the things that we figure out a little later is they wanted a witness to his death if he's trying to stir up trouble.
Mm-hmm.
The whole point of the Free Mars statement, it just was that I don't think they were necessarily wanting a telepath to witness it.
Yeah.
And, you know, in the interview, when Sheridan does get involved, I actually kind of feel sorry for both of them.
Uh-huh.
I mean, he's hard on her in his questioning.
Yeah.
But I understand why, with the Senate putting the kind of pressure on, if he's able to get her, if he grills her now and gets it done with, he's kind of able to take some of the pressure off. And part of it is just doing his job on top of it.
Yeah.
So it kind of shuts down that avenue.
Yeah. You know, and at this point, it seems like this Mars thing goes really deep.
Yeah.
You know, someone is manipulating the situation and forcing a conflict here.
And the who is the big question.
Right.
But with her being a witness, you know, obviously she's a risk. So, you know, he wants an escort to get her back.
Yes.
To her quarters and keep her under guard. And how does Garibaldi do it?
I don't know. Is he telepathic himself?
At least where she's concerned, it seems to be.
Yeah, it sure does. But you know, he escorts her and tells her some jokes,
which go over like a lead balloon
at first.
Yeah, you know. And what does badinage mean anyway?
Badinage. It's
actually I know.
Yeah, it's humorous or witty conversation.
Banter.
Yeah, and she just wasn't in the mood for it at that moment.
Nope, but he gets a laugh out of her.
Yes.
And apparently it's a good thing that they've got some protection for her, because when the assassin, and that's the best word I can think for him now at this point, since he's obviously working for someone, this is a hit, and figures out that, the witness turns out to be a commercial telepath, and she can be a risk, and we find out soon enough just how she is a risk.
Yeah.
They decide she better be the next target and get rid of her.
Yeah, and this guy, he has cybernetic implants on his hand that lets him plug his...
Or at least the hand is...
Yeah, he plugs his finger right into the COM port and uploads what happened, and then downloads instructions.
Right.
So that kind of explains why he just walked by Talia while she was there. He did not have instructions to harm her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, as they're investigating, I will say this. We have definitely seen some shifting in Susan's attitude towards Talia.
Yes.
Of course, we're starting to see some shifting in attitude of Talia toward, you know, where the Psi Corp is concerned.
Yeah.
You know, with the Jason Ironheart incident in particular.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, to be completely honest, Talia has been very fair with Susan.
Yep.
And very professional as far as the telepathic thing is gone. And, you know, I can imagine them meeting up for coffee maybe regularly.
Yeah.
And just visiting.
And what's important is Talia hasn't pushed herself on Susan. She's just more or less been herself.
Yeah. And, you know, we know what goes on later on. Okay, there seems to be an attraction between these two.
Yeah, at least on a friendship basis at this point.
Yeah, the actors did a great job of showing that, especially Susan when she was talking about Talia.
Yeah.
She told Sheridan that Talia can be trusted.
Yeah. And I really like Sheridan's response there. I trust individuals, not organizations.
Oh, yeah.
And as we go through, we see that character trait of his manifested over and over again.
Yeah. Well, how many times have you run into a situation where you're dealing with an organization as opposed to an individual,
It's fundamental to my method of leadership.
Yeah. Organization seems to have trouble making decisions.
Yeah. Do you know what the definition of a project managed by committee is?
A failure?
Yes. And just from a personal philosophy, loyalty is only given to individuals, never organizations.
Right.
Even when you take it to the point of patriotism, when you think of patriotism and your loyalty to America, what does it become? It becomes you see Washington in your mind's eye.
Yeah.
You see the people.
Mm-hmm.
I've just found that generally true over the years. Reliable loyalty is something that's given to people, to individuals, not to organizations or groups.
Yeah, I would have to agree when I think about that.
Mm-hmm. So, obviously, Carter's not very happy about Isogi's death.
Yeah.
Even though he was on the other side of the table.
Right. Well, he had a peaceful solution to this. There would be no more bloodshed.
Of course.
And
Garibaldi has kind of run into a brick wall trying to trace this down.
Mm-hmm.
Though what's interesting here is Sheridan actually has an idea of what's going on, but he is rather scared of his idea.
Yeah, because he feels like there is, as he puts it, special help coming from somewhere.
Right.
And
right.
Then when you consider what he was told by the senator, and overhearing the President Clark and so forth and so on, he's beginning to put two and two together.
Well, as when you see how much he does know, I think there's going to be more than just a little addition going on here.
Yeah.
Now, Talia gets attacked now, and something about Talia triggers images and has a big impact on the attacker.
Yeah.
Which is fortunate for her. That's what keeps her alive.
Yeah.
But she scans him. She's able to hit his mind telepathically, and it also gets a visual to actually confirm who the attacker is.
Yeah, and he goes from being a machine to being human again for a brief period there. And you know what? If there was any doubt that this guy was programmed, it's all gone at this point.
Yeah.
He's spouting "Hey Earther" and "Free Mars," and I think this is a ruse that has been programmed into him to throw Garibaldi or other investigators off the trail.
Yes, from the perspective of they're wanting to start a conflict with Mars.
Yeah.
But don't forget, and we get an idea of the guy. His name's Abel Horn. He also was a violent terrorist as well.
Yeah.
So it's programmed in, but they're taking advantage of his history and his approach to politics as well.
Right.
Now, interestingly enough, he's also dead.
Yeah, when they look him up, he's deceased.
According to Earth Force.
Yes.
Except Sheridan knows something here.
Yeah.
We don't know what yet, but he definitely knows something.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not the only one that knows something. Apparently, Amanda Carter knows Horn.
Yeah, and it seems like she has a bit of a past and some skeletons in her closet as well.
Right. And we get some details as to what those are a little bit later. But he claims he didn't do it.
Yeah. Well,
he wants her to get him back to Mars.
He apparently uploaded the information and it was wiped from his memory at that point. Now, what's really funny is when he comes on the scene, she says, "I thought you were dead."
Yeah.
Could this be shades of Escape from New York? How many times in that movie
a tip
do you
of the
hear,
hat.
Snake Plissken, I thought
you were dead.
dead.
Well, aside from the fact that Horn was dead, but the exact line like that, it's got to be her role as wonder. Maggie. Her role as Maggie was iconic.
Yeah. I always laugh when I hear that.
Now, what's weird? How much of this? Because at one point he's wanting her to get him back to Mars, then he's asking for help. Or is he just there to kill her? I mean, how much is it of Abel Horn and wanting her help, and how much is it this phase 2 that he's supposed to be engaged in?
Yeah,
which we really don't know.
And the way he talks to her, he's not the killing machine at this point.
No.
So did Talia accidentally awaken something in him that is staying with him now and causing a conflict with his programming?
Well, I'm going to borrow one of the things that you mentioned a little bit later in our notes, because I think you got it. She introduced a virus, I guess is one way of putting it.
Okay.
Or if not that, she broke his programming. Think of it as a boundary, what programmers call a boundary error. You get an array from 1 to 10, or what happens when you put the number 12 in. It didn't trap it. The program just took the second star to the left and went straight on till morning.
Right.
And just didn't blue screen of death immediately. But anyway, Amanda, we do know, as you said, she used to be with Free Mars as well.
Yeah, but she apparently was not, they were not a terrorist organization.
Right, and we'll get to that when she explains everything to Sheridan and team.
Right.
But Mike's having tea, Susan's getting frustrated, Sheridan's getting scared, and Amanda's, who knows what's happening with her at this point.
Right.
So, tea, his third favorite thing.
His third favorite thing in the universe.
We
know the third favorite. We know the second favorite.
Dodgers in the 23rd and a half century.
24th and a half century. And do we ever find out what his first favorite thing is? Or do we just assume that later on down the road we figure that out from Dodger?
Yeah, Lisa Alexander meaning? Yeah. That's what I'm going to guess. That's what I'm going to guess. The conversation is interesting, though.
No, not Lisa Alexander.
Lisa Hampton. Lisa.
No, you remember the ground pounder?
Yeah.
With the nickname Dodger?
Right.
Okay.
That he's like, gee, wait, I can't do this. His response there was, I can't do this.
Yeah, I remember that.
So I'm going to stay with Lise. But
okay.
we get some very interesting conversation about the Psi Corp. Talia was raised by the Corps since she was 5.
Right. And she had someone helping her cope.
Yeah. So we kind of see the nicer side of the Corps at this point.
Well, yeah, the nicer side of the Corps. You know what? It would seem to me that with that organization, niceness comes with a very high price.
Yeah, and we are going to see that in 2 episodes. A Race Through Dark Places.
Okay.
But yes, what you say is absolutely correct there.
Yeah. Well, when you deal with the Corps, you are more or less selling your soul.
I mean, if she's there from that young, when they say the Corps is mother, the Corps is father, they aren't kidding.
Right.
And finally, we find out from Sheridan exactly what is happening, because he knows what's happening. He's got it confirmed. Project Lazarus.
Dun, dun, dun.
Basically, Horn is a cyber zombie.
Yes.
And he also figures out that Talia's talent that screwed up his programming.
Yeah, and
the virus that you mentioned.
Yeah, as you pointed out, the virus.
So it seems that Project Lazarus isn't entirely stable.
And who would really expect it to be when you consider that humans are involved?
Of course.
And if Talia
Murphy's rule of programming, there's always one more bug.
Yeah. And if Talia is able to reboot this guy's human hard drive, then definitely the Lazarus Project is questionable.
Yep. So we've got keeping the guard on Talia, keeping her escorted, and that is where we hear Zach Allen's voice for the first time.
Yes.
You notice they kind of gave us the voice before we even saw the character himself.
Yeah.
And before we actually see him in person, we get that. I love the door gag. I'm sorry. It was funny.
Yeah.
The door gag was funny.
Yes, it was. And we seem to, and Sheridan seems to understand a few scientific principles and things because they're scanning.
Yep.
They're scanning for Horn, and he knows how he knows that he wants to set the equipment up a certain way, but he doesn't exactly remember how to do it.
Right.
And Garibaldi says, "Let me do it. I can show you how to do it." And then he messes up the door.
Then he messes up the door.
Yeah.
And leaves Sheridan to fix it. Just like tech support teams everywhere.
Ah, yes.
Sorry for anyone who's in tech support. I can say that because I used to manage a tech support. But it seems Zabel is fighting his programming, as we said, and he wants Talia's help.
Uh-huh.
He gets it that the Psi Cop that we saw at the beginning, we see some flashbacks. That Psi Cop was part of his reconstruction. She just wasn't managing the situation. She was up to her ears in it.
Yeah.
And it seems Sheridan's got it figured out too, because, he almost talks him down.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, Cyber Zombie is rigged to blow.
We get some boom today.
We get some boom today, and we get some boom tomorrow.
Yeah. Did you notice Sheridan falls very well?
Yeah.
I'm sure that was a stunt double, but...
Oh, yeah. But it's after this that we get the full story of Amanda.
Mm-hmm.
That, yes, she was with Free Mars. She was Horn's lover. They were together for quite some time. In fact, he's the one who got her into Free Mars.
Uh-huh.
And she got out when the movement turned violent. But rather than ending her career, Sheridan gives her the opportunity to continue Isogi's dream.
Yeah. Well, he knows that she believed in what Isogi was trying to do, and she wants a peaceful solution to the situation.
Uh-huh.
Let's just have Mars independence, okay? And we're going to try to work this in a peaceful way. So, of course Sheridan's going to be for that. And
we get an important little detail that Sheridan is sympathetic toward Mars.
Uh-huh.
That's going to be very important in next season and in season 4.
Uh-huh.
And, did you notice as we start wrapping up and going through all the little follow-up stuff, Talia fills Sheridan in on what was going on, but she's still a little discreet about what she saw. She keeps the fact that it was a Psi Cop involved out of the story.
Could that be part of her programming?
I don't think so, honestly, at this point. I think it's still her conflict with Psi Corp. I don't think she wants to believe Psi Corp can be what she saw yet. And there's a reason I say that. There is a very specific reason I say that. I couldn't resist. I had to go and skip an episode after this, and go straight to A Race Through Dark Places.
Uh-huh.
And when we hit that in 2 more episodes, remember to bring this question up to me. That's where she really has to face the truth about Psi Corp, and it has to make a decision. And the other thing is, remember, her programming is entirely subconscious. It stays out of her conscious. It only operates when she's off or offline.
I don't know. See, now the point of view that I'm coming from here is not necessarily her hidden programming. However,
you're talking about her
Psi Corp programming.
In that case, then yes, you and I are saying the same thing.
Because even though Sheridan may not be loyal to, or may not want to deal with organizations, Talia is a member of a very powerful organization.
Yes, you're right.
That she is loyal to.
In fact, we get that. I mean, that's the whole point of her. What was her handler? Her when she was 5, Abby.
Mm-hmm.
That was the whole point of Abby. You know, the whole nice side of the Psi Corp.
Yeah.
That side of the programming, keeping the commercial telepaths.
Yeah. I don't think Talia would consciously betray another member of the Corps.
No. It has only been during her tenure at BAB 5 that she's starting to see some of the dark side of the Corps.
Yeah.
So, yeah, from that type, yeah, you're absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, big question. And I think this is where we're getting into some look ahead. How did Sheridan know about the Lazarus Project?
One thing I've learned about you is you never ask a question unless you have the answer.
Well, obviously, it tells us in the story he collects secrets.
Right.
And he also seems to be aware of something bigger going on.
Yeah. And I agree with Mike in this case. I think Sheridan knows more than he's letting on.
I know he knows more than he's letting on.
Yeah.
His assignment to Babylon 5 is not an accident.
It's also not logical.
Yeah, but I don't just mean by Clark.
Mm-hmm.
There are other people that wanted him assigned to Bab 5.
Okay.
So I'm not going to go too far into that because now that'll start to drift a little further into spoiler territory than I want to at this point. But...
Well, but looking back, you know, even he was baffled by his appointment, considering his performance in the Earth-Minbari War.
Right.
So, you know, it didn't make sense to him why he would have been appointed to that position.
Yeah, and that's from the perspective of Clark wanting him there.
Uh-huh.
But there's more going on than that, and he's there for a purpose.
Yeah. Other
than simply managing Babylon 5 or representing Earth Alliance.
Yeah, well, he's there to alienate the aliens.
That's what Clark, I think, is hoping.
Yeah.
But he's also there for a much bigger purpose than that. Now, Bureau 13, Sheridan clearly knows that there's something big going on.
Yeah.
So the questions, is he already suspecting Clark?
Oh, I think so.
And, yeah, and I kind of let slip already, I guess, because it's like, you know, the other question is he already part of some sort of opposition to Clark?
No, I don't think he's part of that yet.
I think that was part of his assignment. Clark was wanting him there to, as you said, alienate the aliens.
Right.
And I think General Haig and his little coalition took advantage of that because they know where Sheridan stood.
Oh, yeah.
So I think in that respect, Sheridan was in on it from the very beginning.
Okay.
And we're going to see, we'll see that develop over the second season and definitely into the third.
Okay.
So, Anthea, by the way, asked me wanted your thoughts. She thinks Sheridan absolutely knew Talia was lying.
Yeah. Well, I would say probably, because we know that the mundanes, as they're termed later on, you know, they're always going to be suspicious of someone in the Corps, no matter how much they actually trust them, because they are so loyal to the organization. You know, the Corps is mother, the Corps is father.
Uh-huh.
And so, yeah, Sheridan probably, if he didn't actually know it, he probably suspected it.
Yeah.
Because there's stuff going on in the background there. I mean, we saw that with the newspaper that Garibaldi was reading during the episode in the first season.
Yep, the Psychops endorsing.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. So, yeah, there's some suspicion where the Corps is concerned, definitely.
Oh, yeah.
And apparently, whoever that control is, they're still active on Babylon 5, so there's a mole.
It could be.
Another mole.
Yeah, I'm sure there are.
I mean, what Jack is gone, Garibaldi's aide.
Yeah.
Jack is gone. So there's apparently still someone else on the inside feeding stuff back.
Well, it only makes sense that somebody's going to be there to watch what's going on.
Uh-huh.
Yep. You got this president that is paranoid, and he's going to want to make sure he's got feelers out everywhere. And if there is a mole on the station, there's probably another one to watch that one.
You got it. And we finish out with Talia doing her own research.
Mm-hmm.
That Psi Cop apparently is dead as well.
However,
at least she's listed as dead.
Yeah.
In this case, in fact, Straczynski cleared it up. It's not that she's dead. She's listed as dead to get her off the grid.
Right, because she's the one that was talking to Control.
Uh-huh. All in all, an absolutely fantastic episode, I thought.
Yes. I didn't completely appreciate it. I know I say this a lot, don't I? I didn't completely appreciate it until I dug deeper into it.
Like I said, it's a standalone that has huge impact on the whole mythology.
Yeah. And you know something? If you're watching this series for the very first time, don't take anything for granted.
No.
No. You absolutely have to take every bit of dialogue, every scene, as a part of the puzzle.
Yeah, and what you're seeing here now with season 2 developing already. I mean, we saw a little bit of it with the first 3. Distant Star was a little bit of a drift off, but then Long Dark, Spider in the Web, Soulmates. I mean, it just continues nonstop.
Yeah.
That momentum that kicked in at the end of season 1 just doesn't stop at all.
No.
And you're going to hear me say this a lot, probably on every episode. It's going to be, and next week's episode is one of my favorites. Which is, next week is Soulmates. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's going to be that Jim is one of my favorites. Of course, when we talk about Soulmates, I'm going to tell you for absolutely certain that, Race Through Dark Places next week. Oh gosh, Jim, that's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
It's just solid writing, solid story all the way through. And even when there's filler, he makes sure that there's important stuff in there.
Yep. Well, are we about ready to wrap this one up?
I sure think we are. I know I've had a lot of fun. Any closing thoughts?
No, I think we've about covered it.
There is something that we do need to thank, or actually some ones that we do need to thank.
Yes.
You passed this word along to me, so I'm going to let you do the honors. All I'm going to say is my jaw dropped. I was totally blown away.
Well, there's some really neat guys doing a podcast called The Age of Geek podcast. Yeah. And they're younger than we are. I believe they're in their 30s, between their 20s and 30s. They're very relaxed style on their show. I've been listening to back episodes of it now for several days, and they gave us a really, really neat shout out the other day, and said they enjoy listening to our podcast.
Wow, I am not a heavy listener, but that's mostly because I have just so swamped, and I have got such a stack of podcasts piled up. If it's not a podcast for one of the shows that I listen to regularly, meaning that the fan shows for my television shows, like Once Upon a Time, Blacklist, those things, the general geekery type podcasts, or if you'll forgive me, even Dune, it waits for the season. Those wait for the season breaks,
right?
And that's what's happening. So they've got a great show. And to get a shout out from Age of Geek is like, oh my God, Jim, are you serious?
Well, and they're very eclectic. They cover everything from games to TV shows to movies, and they're very knowledgeable. And I just want to say thanks, guys. And if you get a chance,
thank you.
Yeah, if you get a chance, check them out.
You definitely want to do that. Anything else to add, my friend?
Well, we did have some boom today.
Yeah, we did have some boom today.
Yeah.
And boom tomorrow.
Oh, we're going to get more boom?
Yeah, there's always a boom tomorrow.
There's always a boom tomorrow.
Good night, sir.
Good night now.
Night, everybody.
Podcast terminated. Thank you for listening to the Babylon Project podcast. You can email Raul and Jim at the Babylon Project podcast at gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook at the Babylon Project Podcast. On the internet, we are at babylonprojectpodcast.wordpress.com. To subscribe to the podcast, you can find us on iTunes, or you can subscribe to the RSS feed on the webpage.